Good everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Welcome to another self-hosted episode for Transhumanism. My name is Vikas Cohen. I'm a transhumanist and I'm very passionate about transhumanism. And the whole reason why I started this podcast, or I would say a talk about transhumanism, is to educate wider population about the importance, significance, as well as the ethical challenges associated with transhumanism. So today, my topic is transhumanism, synthetic organs, and the quest for immortality. Now, before I get into any further with the topic of immortality, synthetic organs, if you are new to this podcast, I would highly encourage you to please subscribe to this podcast. The reason why I say so, it's not a marketing or it's not any sales pitch, right? Because I honestly believe through this podcast, you will get to know more about transhumanism, about synthetic biology or nanotech. So that's the main goal behind this YouTube channel altogether. Okay, so what is transhumanism, right? If you might wonder, so I'll give you a very simple and quick explanation. So transhumanism is all about enhancing the human body and mind through technology. And one of the biggest focus, I would say, of transhumanism is life extension, right? Now, we transhumanists are very passionate to extend human life. We are pro-life people. We love to ensure that, human beings live, beyond certain, time span. Like, for instance, right now, average human being life expectancy is around 80 year old, 80 maybe. And we, as a transhumanist, wanted to ensure we can extend human life to, say, 200 years, 400 years, 500 years, 1,000 years, right? Now, which also means, right, we are thinking for different pathways to ensure, we are moving towards that direction. And that's where the quest for immortality comes into picture. Now, before I get into the quest for immortality, right, I just wanted to briefly touch upon synthetic organs, right? Because obviously this topic is about synthetic organs and the quest for immortality, because the whole point is how the synthetic organs can drive the journey, right? Now, you might have heard about synthetic organs before. If not, that's perfectly fine. So synthetic organs are artificial devices designed to replicate or improve the function of a natural human organ, right? I mean, they can be created using biomaterials, 3D printing, stem cells. You might have heard about stem cells research, or even bioengineering technique. You might even also heard about a very common concept that's been used over and over. That's the tissue engineering, right? So this is one part of synthetic organ development, right? Now, you must be wondering, that's all great. So do we have anything right now, right? So as of now, as of 2024, there are a lot of research that's happening in synthetic organ space, right? The first of all, I wanted to mention the 3D printed organs, right? Now, scientists have been able to 3D print human tissues like skin and simple organs like bladders, right? So the vision is that one day we will be able to print fully functional heart, kidney, or lungs, right? Now, there's also a research that's going on in bioengineering space to bioengineered liver. So what scientists are doing, they're bioengineered liver tissues that can grow and function within the body. So this is one of the area of research that's going on as of 2024. Now, there's also a concept called artificial heart. So there is a device called Syncardia Total Artificial Heart, which, if proven successful, can replace failing heart for a patient waiting for transplants. Think about it, right? Think about it for a second. How useful that for, right? Many people die, unfortunately due to heart failure. If we transhumanists, using our transhumanist technology, can prevent that, how important that will be for humanity, right? Now, you must be thinking, that's all great. That's a very beautiful explanation about synthetic organs and importance. Now, can you explain to me, you must be wondering, the role of synthetic organ in transhumanism, right? Which is the main topic anyways. So, like I said, right, the main vision of transhumanist, right, this is our core vision, and I presume that other transhumanists out there who's listening to this podcast will agree to that as well, is to extend human life beyond our natural limits. And one major way we believe we can achieve this by replacing failing biological organs with superior synthetic versions, right? I mean, if we can swap out organs like, car parts, we might theoretically achieve physical immortality, right? Now, you must be wondering, that is an interesting and intriguing concept, right? Now, think about a scenario, right? Why do we as a human being or as a human race, why do you think death happens to us? Why do you think people die, right? I'm not talking about accident or function failure or organ failure. I'm talking about a natural way a person dies, right? It's mostly because of biological decay that happens in the body, right? Organs started to decay, your brain started to decay, right? So that is one of the biggest. That I understand that I've simplified, in a very simplistic way, because there's more to it. But just imagine, in a simplistic terms, right, that the reason why we human beings die because of the chemical processes inside our inside our body started to slow down, and our organs started to decay, and eventually the process gets shut down, right? If you think about it from a computer perspective. Now, that's one of the biggest barriers to immortality, right? Because our organs degrades over time, and that's where the synthetic organs comes into picture, right? It offers a solution by eliminating issues like organ failure and transplant shortages, right? Imagine a scenario if you could simply replace your heart, liver, or lungs when they begin to fail, rather than, to rely on a limited pool of donor organs. Organ donor is an important concept, right? Obviously, you might have heard about, heart transplant, kidney transplant. Obviously, that transplant, right, it has to come from someone. And that means a person has to die, maybe from a dead body, maybe someone, signed a contract or I mean, I don't like to use the word contract because, it sounds like you're in a kind of, contractual agreement. That's not what I meant. I mean, a person giving consent that after his death, his organs can be used for, better purpose or whatever. Now, as a transhumanist, we believe that organ replacement, which I often call it as a plug-and-play architecture, where you can take out an organ and connect it back, like you have, like replacing a car parts or any electronic parts, right? It's one way. It's a one step towards immortality, but it's not as simple as it seems like, right? Because, obviously, I'm going to talk about it, the complication with this approach, because it's not as simple like, all right, your heart is about to decay, just take the heart out and put the artificial one. There are serious issues with that approach, which I'm going to discuss. Now, one important thing we need all as a human race, we as a human civilization, I would say, should consider what it means to extend life. What it means where people are not going to die anymore. What that means to the human race. Obviously we have built a lot of frameworks, a lot of processes, which relies on death, right? Obviously your funeral businesses and other kind of stuff, right? Because that's business works on people dying, right? And now what happens if people do not die, right? Now, that's all the things we should consider, when we talk about, synthetic organs, right? And now, before I talk about ethical consideration, the challenges associated with it, right? I wanted to discuss, like, how close are we to synthetic organs, right? That's an important conversation before we even get into the negative side of it. The question we should be asking: are we really close to it, or is it just a gimmicky, futuristic science fiction concept? Well, the thing is that if you look at 2024, like I said, right, fully functional synthetic organs like heart, liver, kidney that can completely replace their biological counterparts aren't available yet. It's not available as of, but we are making strides. 3D printing, like for instance, right, I spoke about a few minutes ago, of simple tissues, and obviously we are seeing a lot of advances in stem cells research, which shows us that synthetic organs are not just a science fiction anymore, right? Because it's not like we are in 1800s where people might ridicule you saying, hey, you're futuristic, it's a science fiction, doesn't work, right? That's not really the case, right? Now, there's a lot of research, like I said, going in the direction of stem cells to grow organ tissue in the lab. And this is really exciting because stem cells are the reason why stem cells, right? I'm very passionate about the stem cells because stem cells are the body's raw material, if I put that in the simple way. Raw material cells that can turn into any type of tissues. It's like you're extracting a part from your own body to build an organ. Now, think about that, right? How cool that technology sounds. In theory, we could grow, new organs from a person's own cells, making synthetic organ rejection a non-issue. Because what might happen, right? You obviously know when you introduce something to your body considers that as a foreign substance, and then the immune reaction triggers, right? And it started to destroy it. Now, to make sure that to make sure your body is not acting against your heart or your lungs, which is a synthetic organ, you need to work on a technology where your body thinks, look, it's one of us. So if I put that in a very simple way, right? Because the last thing you want, you connected an artificial heart instead of a real heart, and your body considered it as an intruder, and it started to attack. So instead of having a normal process like heart circulation and pumping the blood, and oxygen throughout the body, it started to destroy the heart. So which means that you're going to end up dying, right? So to stop that, scientists are really looking into the stem cell because, like I said, stem cells are the body raw materials. Yeah. Now, and another thing, right? It's not as easy as you think, right? Even if you are relying on stem cells, right? One thing you need to understand, right? Our heart, kidneys, even lungs, they're complex organs. They are not pretty straightforward organ as we think, right? Because it involves multiple tissues and intricate networks of blood vessels. How are you going to fix that, right? And it's still extremely very difficult, even using a stem cell research. But there is an expectation, or if I put my optimistic hat, I would say as 3D printing and bioengineering technology improves, these obstacles are slowly being overcome. Yeah? Okay, now let's talk about immortality, right? Which is an important thing, right? The concept of immortality is not new, right? It's since the dawn of civilization. Ancient cultures talks about immortality. Even today, people are very curious to know what could we do to achieve immortality. You might have seen in a lot of movies and fictions like Fountain of Youth, and even there is, South Asia, there's a concept of Shambhala or something, right, where the legend has it say that where you can actually go there to achieve the immortality, but no one knows the route to reach there, right? Now, the one thing what we can do, right, as a scientist, as a transhumanist, you can work on an alternative path to achieve immortality, like biological immortality. Synthetic organs, right, could help achieve biological immortality provided we overcome the challenges, right? So what will happen? Our body will not age, and it will not succumb to disease in the traditional sense. But like I said, right, immortality is not about just replacing organs. It's about addressing the overall aging process, which involves cellular degeneration, and we also need to worry about telomere shortening and more, right? I don't really want to get into too much of synthetic biology and other complex aspects, but just to make you understand, right, it's not just about plug and play, organ, but we need to worry about, like tissues and cellular level stuff, right? Now, there's another thing which you might also ask me. So what's wrong? Okay, so if you're saying we can't achieve immortality, at least can we achieve longevity, right? So what I mean to say that instead of our body getting decayed internally, let's say in 80 years, can we extend it to say 600 years? That's a kind of that's a pretty good result, right? If we could do that using synthetic organs, it's still not a bad choice. Instead of living till 80, you can live till 500 years, which is now. There are other areas of research that's happening, which is very important from a transhumanism perspective. That is combining synthetic organs with artificial intelligence and nanotechnology. Now, imagine combining synthetic organs with nanobots that can repair cells at a microscopic level, or brain-computer interface that allow for cognitive enhancement, right? So these things can boost our research, as well as it helps scientists to understand what's the best way we can move forward, right? Because a combination of this technology could be an ultimate path to achieving immortality. So we spoke about, briefly, I spoke about, you're the listeners. So, I like to use we because obviously it's not just me, I presume, because I'm addressing people, right? Okay, now I spoke about, good things about transhumanism, good things about synthetic organs, right? Good things about, immortality, right? Why immortality is important. Now, let's talk about ethical and philosophical aspect of it. Why we might hit a roadblock. Now, first of all, we might hit a roadblock because there are lots of people living on this planet who will assume we are playing the role of a god. Now, that itself is a bit of a controversial topic, right? Because we are comparing ourselves with something which we do not know exists or not, right? Because let's accept the fact. The concept of God is not based on fact. It's based on faith. And you cannot prove it in the lab. It's just based on because our human brain is very primitive. We are measuring the entire universe based on what we understand. We think, like on planet Earth, we are building something, so we assume that the universe needs a creator. So based on that assumption, we assume that we need something called God. So that is basically we invented using our language, right? If we didn't have a language, we wouldn't have invented the term God itself, right? Now, I do understand. Look, I'm a Jewish man, right? But at the same time, I honestly believe we should not mix the faith and science, right? It's not something which is like mixing water and oil together. You cannot mix them together. Faith, I get it. It's important for you to, motivate things in life, to, to help you challenge when you are on the brink of failure. So faith, it's really important, right? I'm not denying that. But in transhumanism technology, there is no such thing called playing God. No. Or let me put it this way. How would you feel if you think you can control your own destiny, control your own life, control your own death? How about playing your own God? How would you feel about that? Right now, I understand that if you're a religious person, you will say, look, I can't do that. And my question will be, why not? Because that's how you've been taught since childhood to say, look, we cannot play God. But what is God, right? Is it a symbolic representation of something which we don't understand? And what would you think that God even care about a primitive species like us? If you think that if let's assume, right? Look, everything is theoretical, right? It's not proven. Why would you assume that a God or energy source or an infinite, like in Jewish Kabbalah we have something called Ein Sof, right? Means infinite. Why would an infinity care about a finite beings, where a tiny finite beings? Like, let me ask you one thing: do you care about butterflies, or do you care about ants? Do you remember the name of every ant? Because we if we consider ourselves the top of the ecosystem on planet, you don't, right? Do you know every butterfly that flies near a garden? You don't. So what makes you think an infinity will care about finite, right? And this is really gonna offend religious people, and my intention was not to, but I'm just asking a very simple question, right? Why do you think infinite, something infinite care about something finite, right? Because the law of the universe is what is created will be destroyed, right? So there are two sides of a coin. One is the creative force, one is the destructive force. As long as both stay in balance, the things will be good for the universe, right? Now, that comes to my second question, right? What is the impact we're going to have on society? Forget about God or forget about religious aspect for a second. Let's assume that, right? Like I said, we are going to live in a planet where humans beings not going to die anymore. What that means to a planet? What happened to overpopulation? Are we going to look for a different dimension or different planets to populate human beings? Maybe we might. Or are we considering going elsewhere out of the planet Earth? Because right now we haven't figured out any other place where we can go and live outside planet Earth, right? In terms of habitable conditions, right? In future we might, right? Because scientists are working on it, but it's a good question to ask, right? What happens if everyone, start living till 600 years or 800 years, let's say, for the sake of argument? Are we gonna, and we already 8 billion people, right? Let's say our population increased to like 50 billion, and none of those 50 billion people are going to die for, let's say, for another 600 years, or let's say another 1,000 years, or let's say another 10,000 years or a million years. What's the implication on planet Earth? What's the implication of the resources? Now, you could argue, right, if you are using synthetic biology, you don't really need to feed on organic stuff, right? You can build stuff in the lab. You can build fake meat, organic, non-organic meat, which is already happening. And our synthetic biology can be, tuned to align with that. That's all possible, right? Obviously, if you can extend our human life, you can do something when it comes to the food source as well, right? Now, the most important question: who will get access to the synthetic organs? Let's say if you're going in that route, if synthetic organs becomes a reality, right? Who will have access to them? You should be asking that. Will they be available to everyone, or will only the wealthy elite be able to afford them, right? Look, if I'm a billionaire, I would definitely go for it, But what happened to the person who makes, tiny money? And what if the synthetic organ, let's say let's say a synthetic heart costs around, say, 50 million. If I could afford 50 million, I will go for it. What if the person who makes, let's say, a million a year cannot afford that, right? So these are the things we should be asking, right? These are the important questions to ask. I mean, it's not only the good side we should be talking about. We should be talking about pros and cons for it. You see, transhumanism often envision a world, right, where everyone benefits from a technology. We transhumanists want the technology should be available to everyone. Everyone should be able to access it. But there are significant barriers, to make this advancement accessible. Because first of all, it's not cheap, right? I mean, Elon Musk Neuralink gave, is a step forward. excuse me. to make sure that people who are disabled will have an opportunity to live a normal life. That's one of the core vision of transhumanism. Though Elon Musk, he never claimed himself to be a transhumanist. In my opinion, he's one of the biggest transhumanists we have on planet Earth, because he is working towards making technological advancement which is going to help humanity, right? So his Neuralink is one of the prime example. I get it. You must say, these things can be controlled if it get hacked. Well, even the phone you use, right, can get hacked. But that should not be stopping us from, marching ahead towards a technological advancement, right? Okay, my final question to all of you before I close this podcast. Are we ready for immortality, right? Think about it, right? After listening to this podcast, think about it. Are you ready for immortality? Let's say you have an option. Let's assume that you have an option where you can go and extend your life. Are you ready for it, right? Are you ready to live forever? Are you going to change your life based on that? Let's assume that tomorrow you get to know there's an organ transplant there, and which will help you live, let's say, for thousands of years. Are you going to take it? Right? I mean, forget about all the religious stuff and all kind of stuff. Like, look, I'm saying this as a Jewish man. Like, I believe in the concept of God, like I said. But even in the previous podcast, I said, I do believe in the concept of God, but that's very different. I don't believe that a God will interact with us on a day-to-day basis, because why would an infinite entity cares about a finite being, right? There are certain frameworks that's been gifted to us. There are certain, we have been gifted. I consider this universe as a library of knowledge, right? And we are blessed to be born in this universe so that we can harness it. That's why the Creator has given us intelligence. And using that intelligence, we can harness things, right? Now, the only interference with the universe will interfere if you try to bring an imbalance to the ecosystem, because that will trigger an ultimate reaction. So I don't really care, about look, different theology has different stuff, right? For me, as a Jewish, I believe that it's our responsibility to make sure we improve the lives on planet Earth. It's not God's responsibility, right? God has created a beautiful universe. Now it's up to us to take care of it, right? The outsourcing our problem to heaven and hell is not going to fix anything on this planet Earth. We should be accountable for our own life, our own journey, and which also means we should be accountable for our own mortality as well as immortality. And if we have a mean to achieve it, we should be aiming for it, provided we address all the ethical and philosophical aspect to it. And that's very important to me as a transhumanist. And that's exactly why we as a transhumanist are working towards to make this planet, the concept of hell and heaven for us, as a Jewish person, is all on earth, right? For me, the planet Earth is the biggest heaven in this realm, what we know, right? I don't know anything about heaven and hell. Nobody knows if it exists, right? I mean, let's accept the fact no one has any clue about it. You can make up all the stories you want. You can say it's written there, but scientifically you cannot prove anything. But then the other argument you can say, like, you cannot prove scientifically certain things. Yes, because science is not advanced yet, right? But we're working towards it. And one of the position of science is that when things changes, science acknowledges it changed. But the religion never acknowledged that it changed, right? It always in fact, it sugarcoats on things to say, look, oh, this part has been involved. Well, show me where it is, right? So that's, look, like I said, I'm not challenging any religious thing. Like, I just wanted to make it clear. That's not my intention, but I'm just trying to say, please do not mix faith and technology, right? You can believe in whatever you want if that gives you, peace, if that gives you courage, if that gives you encouragement in life. That's fantastic, right? That's every human being should be inspired to do something great. And if religion is the way you're achieving it, perfectly fine. What I'm trying to say here is that immortality should not be looked as a curse, or should not be looked at something, which against the wish of a God, because like I said, God is an infinite being. Why would an infinite being would care a finite being achieving certain state of immortality? As long as you're not bringing an imbalance to the ecosystem. An infinite being will only care if your quest for immortality cause imbalance in the universal ecosystem, right? And if you started to destroy other life forms because of greed, then the universe will interfere, right? So that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, if you have any concern, please put your feedback. I'm always open for, discussion, because like I said, this is a new philosophy and it's getting popular, and it's based on technology, a technological advancement, right? You can actually prove things in the lab. So we're talking about science, we're talking about mathematics here, we're talking about biology, we're talking about physics, we're talking about nanotech, we're talking about chemistry, we're talking about tissue engineering, we're talking about all the good stuff that comes along with transhumanism. So in saying so, I hope you guys have an amazing Sunday. Adios.